Another Premier League season is over, and with Liverpool lifting the ever so desired number 20, there is only reason to celebrate. What is that? My predictions. Oh yeah, I made those almost a year ago, but it should be fine. Last time around I had a pretty good performance, so there is no reason to believe that this time should be any different, right? Right? As always, the point tally is easy enough to understand. Every position that I get wrong is an extra point. So if I predicted Man City to win the league but they finished third, that's 2 points. That means that I want to score as low as possible. So let's start with the relegation spots. These are usually the easiest to predict, so I'm confident that I did well here. Nottingham Forest. This time will be the year that Nottingham Forest go back to the Championship. Oh god. So this is probably one of the worst starts I could have ever had. For most of the season, not only were Forest safe from the drop, they were fighting for Champions League football. And it wasn't until the very end that they collapsed and finished in 7th. That is still 13 points for me already. That's a horrible start. I apologize to Forest for doubting you like that. Clearly a terrible call. Now let's see if my next few calls were a bit better. Southampton and Ipswich Town. Their squads are simply not strong enough to survive in the Prem, and so I think that alongside Forest, they will all go down. I did predict both of these teams to relegate this season, both off by a single spot, which means that I get a point for each prediction, bringing the total to 15 points, a lot better than before. Not much else to say on this one. All 3 newly promoted teams were awful this season, and it showed on the standings. Now let's see if my predictions can keep improving. Now for the teams that will barely survive, I'm gonna have Fulham. I'm not really a fan of the business that Fulham have done this transfer window. They were pretty mediocre towards the end of the last season, and so I think they will finish 17th. Another awful call to have Fulham barely survive when they finish in mid-table in 11th. So that's 6 more points for me. Leicester I think are gonna be the only newly promoted side to survive, but I'm gonna bet on the few youngsters that they brought in to strengthen their squad to be enough to pull them ahead of the teams below them. I forgot to record the Leicester part of this video, but there's not really much to say. I predicted them to be the only newly promoted side to survive, and they did not. It was not even close. So that's 2 more points for me. And yes, I'm not gonna make the same mistake I did last year, and I'm gonna predict Bournemouth to survive this time, although losing Solanke makes it impossible for me to see anything higher than 15th. Finally, I predict Bournemouth to survive, and I still underestimate them. They finished 9th in the upper half of the table, giving me another 6 points. Brighton, once again, are an absolute wildcard. I know none of the youngsters that they brought in this season, and so I don't know where to place them. If last season is any indication of how things are gonna go this year, I think that 14th is a fair assessment. I predicted the Seagulls to continue on their downwards trajectory, and instead they went back up. They reached 8th, almost making it into Europe and giving me 6 more points. Jeez. Barring a new points deduction, I think that Everton this season should be able to breach into the mid-table. Oh, thank you brothers, I knew I could count on you being mid. Bang on prediction on this one, the very first of the video. Let's keep those coming, please. And Wolves impressed me last season, and keeping their squad mostly the same, only really selling Killman, I think that they'll finish 12th. Nope, 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 nope. Wolves finished 16th. That's 4 extra points to the tally. Mid-table is gonna be Brentford. Okay, that's a fair prediction. Brentford ended up finishing 10th, so only off by 1 spot. I did good on that one. Perhaps in the upper half of the table is where I shine? Newcastle. I might be overreacting with this one, but for Newcastle, I think that the writing is in the wall. What was I smoking that day? Dear Lord. Expecting Newcastle to be mid? Sure. 10th? They even finally won a trophy! And they finished 5th and made the Champions League. Oh my god. And 9th, I'm gonna have Crystal Palace. Oliver Glasner was cooking last season, although they did sell Olise. And seeing the competition ahead of them, I'd love to be bold, but I can't do anything more than 9th. Even though Crystal Palace finished 12th, and that's 3 more points for me, I will give myself credit for predicting Palace to be a threat this season. Breaking into the top 8, I'm gonna have Spurs. I've been saying it for a while now that I think that Ange is clueless. I think he'll be gone by January and Spurs will have no time to recover, and so they will finish outside of the top 7 once again. To be fair, I don't think anybody expected Tottenham to be this bad, but 17th! I had them fairly low on the standings and that's still 9 spots off, jeez. I fear this one may be beyond saving now. I'm gonna keep up the tradition of placing Chelsea 7th, as it has worked out pretty well for me in the past, and I don't have faith in them coming back at least this season. You know what? I'm not mad. I stick to my guns, I was off by 3 spots. Fair play to Chelsea. We'll see each other in the Champions League next season. And 6th place, I'm gonna have West Ham, who I think actually cooked this transfer window, getting some very effective players like Max Kielman, Somerville and Niklas Füllkrug. And even though I don't rate him, Guido Rodriguez on a free can be a very decent squad player for the midfield. So yeah, I'm gonna put a bit of faith on West Ham this season. Okay, but what the fuck, why? I believed so much on the new signings when they all happened to be flops. They finished 14th. That's 8 more points. 5th place, to my disappointment, I think it's gonna be Liverpool. Well, if there is any prediction that I'm glad I got wrong, it's this one. I kept my expectations low after making no signings going into our first season with Arne Slot. But the team showed up in an amazing way, and by winning the league, these are the 4 points that I'm happiest to add to my tally. Definitely worth it. Thank you so much, lads. 4th place, I'm gonna have Aston Villa. Yes, I'm gonna keep Emery's boys into the Champions League for next season as well. For a bit it seemed like Aston Villa could make it back into the Champions League, but nope. Despite having an amazing season overall, they finished 6th, so that's 2 more points for me. But the top 3 is usually where I don't fail, so here we go. Now, 3rd place, I'm gonna have Manchester United. I personally think that United has had the best transfer window out of any Premier League club this season. Leny Yoro, Xerxes, Masraoui, De Ligt, even getting players back from loans like Van de Beek, Sancho and Pelistri. United has strengthened their squad into every key position while the opposition has remained fairly quiet. This will now be Erik ten Hag's 3rd full season as manager, and so all of the excuses about rebuilding are out of the window. If United don't finish in the top 4 with this squad, it's gonna be a massive failure. But I know on the back of my mind that United could always self-destruct, be it the injuries, the manager or even the players themselves. Something always seems to go wrong for United. I'm gonna keep them at 3rd because I think that's what the expectation is, but I can see a scary world where they drop down again. I may have believed a bit too much on the project. I thought that United were really cooking this season, but they weren't cooking shit. Trophyless and 15th, their worst ever season. That's 12 spots off. Somehow not even my worst prediction because I had Forest finishing 20th. But holy cow, yeah, no, there's no saving this one, I'm afraid. Now, what's the top 2? And now the moment you have all been waiting for. The moment where I say that Manchester City are gonna be champions of the Premier League again and go back to back to back to back to back. But no, this is the year. This is the season. I have foreseen it. Manchester City are gonna finish in 2nd place, and after 20 years, the champions of the English Premier League will be Arsenal. Well, I will pat myself on the back for correctly predicting that Man City wouldn't win 5 in a row. I was still off by 1 spot, same as Arsenal because they didn't win the league. They finished 2nd once again, and they were never even close to the title, being honest, so even though it's only off by 1 spot, that is also a horrible prediction. And now adding all of the points up, my total score is 88, by far my worst predictions ever since I've done them in this channel, and also a massive step backwards from last season. The only positive is that I can only do better than this, but now my reputation is ruined and I don't think you guys can trust my predictions ever again. My life might as well be over with all of the things I said. But either way, we'll be here back next season to see what horrible predictions I can cook. And again, thank you all so much for watching. Remember to like, leave your thoughts down below in the comments and subscribe to not miss out on any more football content. I'll be seeing you all next time.